So welcome back, everybody, to Kaleidoclip News. We have a very special guest today. Mahfouz is here all the way from the UK. He is a very popular TikToker talking about world news. He is definitely growing his channels and his influence.
Abdullah, thanks for inviting me on. It's a pleasure to be here. Keep our audience in the loop. So we're talking about an American. So he's your friend. I'm joking.
Yeah,
Just
he
because he's
probably is.
American.
I probably know him. We probably hang out, have coffee together.
It's a small world,
Because
yeah. So
it's a very small country, very small
yeah, of
country.
course. America is like, what is it, like an
Yeah,
island or a peninsula? Yeah, nah.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
coast to
yeah.
coast, isn't it? It's a continent-sized country. So yeah, an American or an American resident at least, named Ryan Macbeth. He did a video on me, 19-minute long video. Got into the technicals, did a couple of straw man arguments. I think he tried to position me as a sort of pro-Russian individual, which I am not. I'm very analytical and very bi or non-partisan really, but for those who are very one side or the other, they get upset if they see anything being reported in a sort of neutral format. So yeah, he made a piece about me. I didn't get around to even addressing all the military and geopolitical details of it. But it is what it is. Like you said, if they start hunting you down, I mean, he's got a million subscribers. I hope one day to have a platform of that size, but hopefully do something more productive once I get there. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But who are you talking about?
Who's that British flip flopper who interviews all the big people?
Well, Piers Morgan.
Oh
Oh,
yeah, that's his name.
Piersy
Yeah, yeah,
boy.
yeah.
Yeah, nah, he's not. He's not. He doesn't know about me. I'm almost certain. He's too big. He's a big fish, and I'm a small fish.
But you would
Yeah,
be surprised, man. He's had a lot of social media personalities on there. Obviously,
yeah, true.
as your channel continues to grow, don't be surprised when you get a phone call.
If I get a phone call from Piers Morgan, you best believe I'm taking the first plane. Well, no, it's not a plane because we live in the same country, but I'm taking the
Yeah,
first method of transport that's viable, heading straight for Piersy boy, to
because
rip him
you in
I
fact
mean,
do
to
live
have
on
a
an
good
island.
conversation with him. What? What?
You in fact do live on an island.
We actually do live on an island, yes.
Yes.
These fair isles of ours.
Yes.
Yeah, Piers Morgan is, funnily enough, I made a video months ago when Piers Morgan was still in a moral quandary about whether or not the actions in Gaza constitute war crimes. He was still on the fence, Piersy boy. At the time, I said, I think Piers Morgan is secretly pro-Palestine. I said he's got handlers, he's got his network to answer to, and
Yeah.
as a result, he has to kind of be uh, in the middle or really pro-Israel, unreasonably so. But then he keeps inviting on like really well-spoken guests that keep tearing him a new one. So I thought maybe this is his way of being pro-Palestine. That was a very odd take for the time, but yeah, I'll bring it up if I ever jump on Piers Morgan's
Isn't
show.
uh Rupert Murdoch was his boss or is currently his boss? I can't remember
Um,
if I know he
I
was
think
at one time. I don't know if he still is.
I think he's no longer his boss, but I'll have to fact check that. I don't keep up to
Yeah.
date with. That's the kind of stuff that's very investigative journalism, and I'm not particularly allocating my resources to that, so I can't say for sure.
Because it is a strange phenomenon, right? When you look at like America's Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, even with him, um, when they get away from their handler, all of a sudden they become anti-Israel, right? And it,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
kind of it's becoming a pattern. Even yesterday, we had Charlie Kirk assassinated at a Utah Valley University in Utah.
Mm.
Um, and now there's a lot of stuff coming out online where he even just did an interview not too long ago with Megyn Kelly, and he said that the bullying that is happening from Israeli and very powerful Israeli Jews, as well as very powerful Jews in the United States who are pro-Israel, is really becoming difficult for him to handle because he's been such an ardent supporter of Israel and everything that they've done, including genocide. And it's just not enough for them. And that, like, now a friend has put a post out saying that he was actually in fear for his life if he ever were to go against Israel. So it kind of seems like, he might be one of those people. Maybe if he had gotten away from Rupert Murdoch and he's a little bit more independent, where he's able to kind of start moving to the center, which is where people should be, right? So I think it's an interesting phenomenon what's going on, and obviously we're over here at Kaleidoclip News. We're covering the story right now, like every hour, of all the updates of what's going on with the Charlie Kirk assassination yesterday and everything. What is the take over there in the UK, especially with like the social media influencers over there with the Charlie Kirk? Is there a big discussion going on with his assassination yesterday, or is it kind of like, that's an American thing, not our problem?
I personally cannot say for sure that this is the overall climate in the UK as it relates to this news piece with Charlie Kirk's death. Just very surface level, I can say pretty much everyone I've met knows about it, right? People who don't really care about America, who don't care about politics, they're not Democrat, Republican, because we don't have that here. We have other
Right.
problems. We have other parties to argue about. Even they know about, oh, this right-wing speaker got taken out, as it were, and the person who did the unaliving is still running around loose because apparently America couldn't find him. I don't know. That's about all the majority of the people that I know of in the UK know about this. I definitely have a geopolitical lens that I look at most things that are relevant through, and this incident sort of highlights the polarization of America from an outside perspective. I see loads of I see loads of Americans, such as yourself, but I'm not saying you're in this camp, but you could be. It doesn't matter. Analytically speaking, Americans, and you might disagree, but let me state my point. I think, from what I've seen, from what many have written about, America has this culture of American exceptionalism. You still there, Abdullah, by the way?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Because
just
the camera
I put
changed.
you on.
Okay.
Yeah, I put you on
So,
solo to highlight you.
all right. So America has this culture of exceptionalism. Now, geopolitically speaking, this was, you could say, warranted, because for the better part of 3-4 decades, depending on what analyst or academic you ask, America was the sole superpower on earth, the first country ever to be in a position where global control essentially is in the palm of your hand. If that's not an exceptional case for a civilization or a nation state, what is, right? So then what tends to happen is, what has happened throughout the last few decades, especially after the Second World War, America's been raising their sons and daughters to believe America is the beacon of civilization, the leader of the free world, the leader of the champion of democracy, right? Just like the Statue of Liberty, the America as a peoples are sort of holding the light and leading humanity, right? So what happens is, now, geopolitically speaking, factually, I'm not saying it's good or bad. Lots of people call me anti-West for this, but if the sky is blue, your favorite color is green, and I say, mate, the sky is blue, you can't call me anti-green. I'm just stating the fact. So the fact is, America has moved and continues to move down from a sole superpower status into a one of two, maybe three eventually, great powers. There'll be 2 or 3 great powers on earth. America will be one of them. I'm not saying America's nothing and it's useless and it's weak, and it's just dropping into a new reality where China, potentially in 10 to 20 years, the European Union, if it gets its act together, America will be one of 3 poles, one of 2 poles in a multipolar world order. But you see, because America's sons and daughters have been raised thinking we're the best civilization ever, best thing since sliced bread, maybe even better than sliced bread, they think that a drop from superpower status to great power status, there's something that has to be done about it, right? Something that has to be done to fight back against that to stay on top. And what you're seeing now is America has an administration under Trump that, analytically speaking, is actually very pragmatic, very realistic. Now, um, Trump and his administration have a view on how to best serve the economy, best serve the people. But the problem is that's just one view. It could be wrong. And also, the people you serve could be just a wee slice of the population. That's the problem. So you have a polarizing administration that's sort of shifting the people in America to this side or to that side. And as a result, people are becoming more politically charged and it's spilling over into violent action. Couple that with the American sort of culture, with your amendments. And it's always ironic, by the way, to us British. Like, the Constitution in America is seen as like the Bible, right? Seen as like the law. Like, wow. But, the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, are amendments. you changed it. You tagged something on. You took something. You
Yeah,
modified
that's
something.
true.
So you can amend more.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's beside the point. The point is America's becoming more polarized. From the outside, it looks like America's becoming more polarized, and because of the culture you guys have there, with the right to bear arms, especially any polarization that leads to violence just becomes so much deadlier potentially.
Yeah.
The school incidents we hear about, it's just like Europeans sort of are flippant. They make jokes, or they're aghast. They're like, what is that culture? What school? I'm calling them school incidents in case you don't want to label it as in a certain way. But school incidents every month, every week. There was one this week, right, with Charlie
Yeah, there
Kirk's
were
school incident.
right,
And I'm
same
like, what
time
the
as
flip
Charlie
is
Kirk.
going on? What is,
So
like, what is
and it
America?
happened in the adjacent state. So Charlie Kirk happened in Utah, and the school shooting happened in Denver, Colorado, which is right next door.
And Trump's got like all the flags flying at half mast, like it's a national tragedy that
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk lost his life. Okay, fine. Someone lost their life. What about the kids? The kids also lost their
Yeah.
life. It's just
Yeah, they never
it's a very
fly
weird
the flag
culture.
half staff for that. And that's
Yeah.
the hypocrisy of and as a conservative myself, and I think that the Constitution should be abided. If you're going to have it, you should abide by it. But at the same time, like you said, there's a major culture problem happening right now, where in the United States we're so divided between left and right, and there's no center anymore. So I remember growing
Mm,
up,
mm.
there was a left and a right, Democrat, Republican, and I don't belong to either party because I think they're both corrupted to the core. But back in the day, even though they were still corrupted back then, they weren't as corrupted as they are now. And really the pendulum swung to absolute corruption when the Supreme Court, like 17, 18 years ago, ruled that corporations are people. And
Citizens
once it
United, was it?
ruled
Yeah.
that, yeah. Once it made that ruling, it basically opened up the floodgates for money to corrupt our politicians. And our elections are basically bought and paid for by the super billionaires and the corporations. And ever since then, because there's so much money involved, so much corruption involved, that there is no more center anymore, right? Like I've said before, a true conservative, what we want is, we don't care about your race. We don't care about your religion. We don't care even what you do in your bedroom is your own business. I'm not going to sit here and talk about whether you're LGBTQ or whatever. I also don't want that taught to my grandkids in elementary school, right? That's not the place for that. And our tax dollars should go to fund us, the people, not the military industrial complex, not super corporations, not bailouts for all of them. We should have healthcare. We should have, if England can have healthcare, if Canada can have healthcare, why can't we have it, right? Why can't we have good
Of
roads like
course.
we used to, right? The highways used to be the best. I mean, it was our shining star to the world is look at these highways in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s for the United States. Everybody envied the highways. They were impeccable. Now you drive down the road, you feel like you're four-wheel driving. You're just boom, 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 right? It's absolutely insane. When you cross a bridge in the United States, you make a little prayer before you cross over it because you don't know if you're going to fall down or not. That's how bad the infrastructure is here now. And it's because of all of the corruption that has happened with the government. And like you said, it's just completely polarized. And the funny thing about it is now you have the everyday average citizen who's living paycheck to paycheck, can barely put food on the table, can barely pay their mortgage, pay their rent, whatever it may be. And they're actually looking at their neighbor saying, I want to unalive you because you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, when the people that they should be looking at are up above them, right? Because those are the people that are creating all the problems, and they're the ones profiting. Like I've said before, as a conservative, I believe in free economy and all of that stuff. But why does somebody need $500 billion? Like there should be at some point a common sense cap. Like you shouldn't be worth more than, say, $5 billion. If you're worth more than $5 billion, you should just, the government should just be able to like say, listen, either you're going to give that in some charity or you know, something's going to happen here. We're going to have to do some tax.
Hang on there, Slick. Okay, well, Abdullah, here, I think I want to critique one of your points. Now, I want to preface this by saying I'm quite non-partisan, so I don't actually publicly make my position clear. I'm pro this group, pro that group, this, you know, I'm socialist or I'm a capitalist, da da da. But I do highlight the knowledge I have and invite people to further contemplate. Because I strongly believe in being informed about a matter before you take a side and fight for that side on that matter. Better to know what you're fighting for. Make sure you're fighting for the right thing. You only have one life. You don't want to waste time fighting for the wrong side. Near the end, be like, oh snap, I was actually supposed to be over there. I was actually supposed to be over there, right? So for example, I'll give you an example. I'm gonna get a lot of I knew it, Mahfouz, you're pro China, but hear me out. In China, they use a capitalist socialist hybrid system, right? It's called socialism with Chinese characteristics. That's what they call it. Okay, so I'm not just championing it, but analytically speaking, what that's meant for the common citizens is you have the opportunities in China, by and large, a large percentage of the population, not the entire population. If you dig a little deep, the rural population doesn't have the same social mobility as the urban population in China. But a great number of Chinese citizens have the capitalist style opportunities. You can start a business, you can get a good job, you can work your way up, you can eventually open your own company, right? You can make money. China has billionaires. China has billionaires. China has a middle class of wealthy citizens that's larger. Just their middle class is larger than the entire citizen population of the United States of America. Because China's obviously 1 billion. So they can, it makes sense they have a huge middle class. But even if it makes sense, that's a huge thing. To have a middle class as much as basically America's whole population is no small number of people. Now, in China, you have millionaires, you have billionaires, but you have what's the opposite of what you're saying. You don't have small government. China has huge government, huge fat in your face government. But the government there is paternalistic. They're like, you can get rich, but not at the detriment of all your other fellow citizens. Whereas in America, it's capitalism with no leash. You can get rich if that means completely screw over that village over there, that town over there, spoil their water so they're drinking brown water in Flint, God knows where, Michigan. No problem. And actually, in fact, if the people rise and demand that something be done, just drop some bribe money to the officials. I mean, lobbying money to the officials, and boom, problem goes away for the corporations, not for the people. So, are you, Abdullah, really? I'm not asking you on the spot, but I would invite you to consider that perhaps small government's not what you're looking for exactly. In some things, yes, but in other things, it sounds like, based on your other grievances, it sounds like you are not satisfied that late stage capitalism in America, where big ag, big pharma, the weapons, the Israel lobby, um, all these um, corporate corporate interest groups, they have so much power. It sounds like you're saying the government should reel them in. This is not good for the citizens, the average citizen, and that would require not smaller government, but bigger government. One could argue. What do you think about that?
I think that the argument makes sense, but what I'm saying is, for example, if you just set a cap, right? If you were to say, listen, for example, under different religious laws, we'll take Islam for example, it is actually not lawful for somebody to have a monopoly on farmland, right? Especially if you're not using it. So if you
Mhm.
go and buy 20 million hectares of land and you do absolutely nothing with it and you prevent anybody else from being able to utilize that land for the betterment of the community, that's forbidden. And
Yeah.
so it's a simple rule. It doesn't require a large bloated government to say, if you make $5 billion or more, you need to give, 80% tax, so that that money can then go back into having good roads, good medicine, good this, good that. That's going to benefit everybody, because after really, I mean, after your first $1 billion, what are you going to do with that?
I
What
I
what what could
appreciate
you
the
how
yeah.
could you possibly spend that, right?
Now
And so it
I
doesn't
understand
take a
where you're coming
large
from,
government
Abdullah.
to do that.
I understand where you're coming from, but practically, if you look at economics, that a wealth cap like that doesn't actually, like, there's no way to really implement that. What would that be based on? Net assets, stock holdings, subsidiaries, companies that you have a share in, and the share prices are continuously changing. It's not practical. Well, the only practical way to make sure that people don't run away with, the lion's share of a country's wealth, like you said, the only way to make sure, oh, what are you going to do after your first billion? So you can't have more than a billion. The only way really is for government to get involved and say, you need to pay more tax, and proportionally, if you make 10 billion, maybe the government will say that's fine, but your tax is now 45% on that 10 billion. So half of that money is going to go to taking care of the rest of the citizens. But the problem is, you can never get there in America with the current setup. You can't get to that stage. How are you going to tax the wealthy 45% past their first billion if the wealthy own your democracy? It's like,
Yeah, and
because
that's the problem,
because we
right?
Brits, a lot of us think of you guys as a pay to win democracy. It's like democracy,
It is.
but you can buy votes. It's like,
Yeah.
so it's a challenging one. It's a challenging one, but
Yeah, and
I
I
think
I
loads of
don't
people
hold
agree with
out
me. So
hope. I don't hold out hope that that's going to happen in my lifetime, unless there's some type of a major revolution. Which, I mean, in a
mm,
country the size of the United States, with the population of the United States, I don't expect a popular revolution to be able to just, non-violently take over the government and say, we're going to make all of these changes, because voting doesn't work in the United States. You have a choice between evil and evil. So you vote Democrat, you got evil. You vote Republican, you got evil. No matter what, you're going to have a corrupt president. You're going to have a corrupt legislature. You're going to have a corrupt Supreme Court now. So that's not going to work. So the only thing that would work is an all-out civil war like we had a couple hundred years ago. The problem now
mm.
is the United States is a nuclear superpower. So if we end up in a civil war, it could literally just end up in the death of all of us, which would then have global impacts on the
Well, hang
rest of
on.
the
What
community.
do you mean by that? So if there was a civil war, which I would forecast analytically based on my outsider, assessment, I don't think it's likely. I think the country is in the closest position it's ever been, all factors included, social media, new technology, digital capabilities included. I think you're the closest to civil war you've been, since your actual last civil war. But I don't think it's gonna end up a actual civil war. But let's say it does. What does mention of nuclear weapons? What did you mean by that? Are you suggesting that
Because
nuclear weapons would be
right,
used
so
on the country itself?
I think that if the country, and God forbid it happens, right? I'm not
Hmm.
definitely not advocating a civil war, because a civil war in the
No, of
United
course not.
States would mean the deaths of millions of people. Not only would it just through the kinetic warfare, but also through starvation, because the United States is heavily dependent on certain regions to provide the bulk of the food of the United States. Imports would come to a halt, and so you would have a lot of deprivation and poverty and all out starvation, sickness, illness, everything. Like
Mm.
the way that the United States industrial complex works, it is all time based, right? So it is just in time manufacturing. That's how we've been manufacturing for the past 40 years. And the same thing goes with our food supply, everything. So all of that would get completely interrupted. um and the problem is, if one side starts to win, like let's say California decides to start the civil war, and Donald Trump and his supporters in DC are fighting against California and Oregon and Washington, and all the liberal states join in and all the conservative states join in, and there's this big bloody battle going on. We've got F-35s, taking out entire, villages and cities and stuff, and you start to feel like
You're
your
losing.
side is going to lose, especially if it's Donald Trump and the people within his administration. They feel like
Yeah.
they're going to lose. Well, why do we need California anymore? Beep, hit the button.
Yeah.
Well, now
Sure.
California sees the missile coming, so California hits the button. Beep, right?
God.
And that's
What
that's the
that would be
great danger of a
calamitous.
civil war within a nuclear superpower, with the absolutely most deadly weaponry mankind has ever known. Even if it didn't end up nuclear, we
Sure.
have
Sure.
bombs that can take out entire city blocks of people. Like what's happening right now in Ukraine would pale in comparison to what would happen in the United States if we ended up in a civil war. And the scary thing is, in my nearly 50 years of life as an American, I've never heard of anybody openly discussing or advocating a civil war in the United States, and now it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. People are literally calling for it. I just seen a video yesterday where a guy pulls up on some very peaceful, they weren't even protesting, they're just out by a bridge, and they've got some signs up, saying, get rid of Trump or whatever. Not like death threats to him or anything, but like they're talking about like voting him out. And this dude gets out of his car, he's got a gun with him, and he walks up to them and says, when the Civil War starts, I'm coming for all of you and I'm going to kill every single one of you. The group is mostly women.
Wow.
It's like, oh my God. And first of all, that's a felony in the United States. So hopefully this dude gets caught, because to make a threat of murder while carrying a firearm is a felony. That is felony assault in the United States. So hopefully he does get caught and gets put in prison for that and teach him a lesson. But that's kind of the heightened level of the United States right now. And now with the Charlie Kirk thing, it is even exacerbated. The people on the right are, I seen comments in the comment sections of many videos yesterday where people are saying we should just start dragging Democrats out into the street and chopping their heads off. And I'm just like,
Insane. Wow. Like, where are we
wow.
living? What world is this? What dimension are we in? I, for
Yeah.
example, saw uh, Nepal. I haven't made a post on my page yet, but Nepal's government collapsed, right? The president resigned. I think he fled, in fact, because Nepal issued a social media ban. That was the spark, but as most Nepalese will tell you, that's not the main reason of the protests growing and maintaining themselves. It's reached a critical mass where the focus has shifted from social media ban to something far more important to the Nepalese, which is the government corruption. A big problem basically everywhere, right? And they
Yeah.
overthrew their government. The, you know, landmark buildings in Nepal, well, not landmark in that sense, not heritage sites, but administrative landmarks, right? parliamentary buildings are on fire, right? These are
Yeah.
making for some really like dramatic, daunting scenes. You know, the you can see the whole building is ablaze, and the comments are like, "Oh, this just shows we Americans aren't trying hard enough," or "This just shows there's options in America that we haven't, explored yet." I'm like, "What the flip are you talking about? Do you know how destabilizing this is?" I'm not saying the Nepalese people shouldn't, call for or push for their rights, but I'm also not supporting or encouraging, revolt or civil war. It's people don't understand what war is, right? The people who've actually been in a war, or those who have read up and learned about it and spoken to people are now wise and cautious enough. Nobody nobody really wins in a war. There's just losers to varying degrees. If there's a civil war in the US, yeah, you're gonna, maybe you watched a few films, Purge, the first Purge. You watched the Purge films and you thought, oh man, that sounds like a great idea. Let me just grab my right. No, bruv, it's not. Relax yourself. It's not. It's
Especially when
not.
the dude
It's
wearing
not
the
like
clown
that.
mask and has the machete is in your house. It's not so fun
Heck.
anymore.
Oh my God. Honestly, and you know what? I'm guessing at some point you're gonna steer us to the UK. It's popping off here as well. It's not as bad as America because we don't have a Donald Trump in office. We have a Donald Trump tryhard wannabe. We have one.
Yeah.
We got one. We got one in the back pocket. Like our
Yeah.
Donald Trump. We have one, but he's not in power, so it's not as crazy. But here on the other side of the pond, things are heating up. You guys are just like hotter at the moment. It's I lots of people, Abdullah, they say I'm anti-West, and I have to point out, it's the second time I mentioned it. I have to point out I'm not anti-West. I don't want the fall of the West. I don't want the downfall of America. If everything lights on fire and the White House, I don't know, blows up, I'm not going to be, out there cheering on my rooftop. I don't even have a rooftop. But if I had, I wouldn't be renting a rooftop and then cheering on it, right? What I'm anti-exploitation of
Yeah.
others, right? I don't want the West to remain on top at the expense of other states. I don't want other states to be on top at the expense of the West or any. You get my point? But the problem is people are too comfortable with the current world order, which is led by America, and they sort of say, "Oh, because you're pointing out the facts, because you want this sort of equity or equality, you must be anti-West." And I only mentioned that I'm not anti-West because this will sound pro West, but I don't think a civil war in America at all would be good. Not at all. You know what? It wouldn't even be good for those people who are like secretly actually anti West. And they're like, yeah, we know Mahfouz is anti West as well, but he's just got a facade going. So we'll support him from the back. Guys, even you guys, first of all, you're wrong. I'm not anti West, even covertly, but those who are openly anti West, it's not even good for you guys. Who do you think China sells all their stuff to? If America's on fire, who are you going to sell to?
Yeah.
The whole world economy collapses. America collapses in on itself. The whole world economy collapses. Everyone gets poorer. And yeah, when the dust settles, maybe you'll end up with two states on the North American continent where there was one state. You have Canada as well, but and Mexico. But I'm saying America would fragment, fine, and that would place the global South in a much better position, arguably. But everyone would get poorer, and more importantly, millions would potentially lose their lives, and
Yeah.
tens of millions or hundreds of millions would lose their livelihoods. So no go, no go. This no go, bro. This is not good for anyone except the very powerful, wealthy few and defense contractors. The rich people, they're going to be padded. They're going to be stacked. They're going to be more stacked by the end, probably. So unless
Yeah.
you're a billionaire, you're probably going to lose out. So put your rifle away, son. That would be
And
my
that's
recommendation.
the thing too that people don't understand. Do you think, Donald Trump and all of his billionaire buddies would stay till the end? No. They got golden private jets and stuff. They'll just take their money and go to another country, right? They'll just go to Europe or
Yeah.
something. So the only people that would lose is the everyday average American. And then, like you said, the world economy would be hit. I don't think it would crash the world economy permanently. I think the humans are very resilient people, and they're very capable of recovering from hardships. And so I think pieces would would realign and economies would realign. The dollar dominance would end, and probably the Chinese currency would take over as the dominant currency. The euro would probably be right there up with them. So I think that, in the short term, yes, it would have a lot of pain for the world, but in the long term, say, maybe 3 to 5 years, the global dominance would just change, and America would no
Yeah.
longer be a
Yeah,
player.
no. Well, if the world economy crashes, that doesn't mean it stays crashed. By definition, a crash
Yeah.
is never permanent. Yeah. There could be, worst case scenario, nuclear war, and the economy would still recover. But
Yeah.
that's not that's not
As
to
long as
say
we're
that
still
people
able
won't
to
suffer
live.
first. Yeah. God,
Because
what a
it
mess.
kind of
Yeah.
depends on how far the nuclear war went, especially if the missiles started flying to other countries. But yeah, I think right now the United States and the Western world is in a crisis right now, with the thing going on in Ukraine, with Russia, in Europe, and with everything that's going on in Palestine. With now, you have Netanyahu threatening to attack Qatar again if they do not do
Yeah.
what he
Oh my God.
wants. So he's given them an ultimatum saying you either kick out Hamas, which is funny, to tell Qatar that they either have to kick out Hamas or bring them to justice, his justice, when he was the one that pushed Qatar to accept them in order to get the political body of Hamas out of Palestine so that he could funnel money to them, so that he could keep Hamas and the Palestinian Authority at odds with each other. And now he wants Qatar to, I don't know, string them up on a bridge or something to make a show of their loyalty to Israel. And if they don't do it, he's going to attack them again. So now
Well, I'll
Qatar is
say,
talking
you know what,
about striking back.
Abdullah, I think part of what I do is try and simplify concepts for the common citizens. And I'm a common citizen, but because I do a bit of reading, I know maybe slightly above average, right? So one thing I would say, just to simplify things here, for the common person, what Benjamin Netanyahu is saying when he says that Qatar has to push out Palestinian resistance political figures, or we're gonna bring ourselves and do it for you. This is just for show. This is complete posturing. It's not an actual demand at a diplomatic level. The Qataris will just scoff and be frustrated. Because even Americans will scoff and be frustrated. They'll be like, "Get a load of this guy," because this is the simplified concept that people really don't know unless you study geopolitics, which is Palestinian resistance officials are in Qatar as part of agreed mediation efforts. It's like if two people, Palestinian resistance and Israel, if two people, they're fighting, right? They hate each other. But then some guy says, hold up, do you want to have a conversation? Occasionally during your fighting, you might want to have a talk with the other side, right? Amongst the fighting, it might benefit you to have a talk. So they say, all right, fine. So they both put guns down. They enter a salon or a bar led by the mediator. They sit down at a table. Now, Israel's one of those people that have sat down. They agreed that Qatar would host Palestinian resistance officials so that Israel can, through Qatar, and America can, through Qatar, speak to the resistance leadership. They agreed. So Netanyahu coming out and saying, "Oh, you guys have to get rid of your." This is just a framing so that the English-speaking world, the Israeli citizenry, but primarily the English-speaking world, primarily is for you guys, right? Because when he's speaking in English, he's speaking to America. He's speaking to the Western world. When he's speaking in Hebrew, he's speaking to the Israeli citizens. And he doesn't speak really Farsi. So when he speaks in English, he pretends he's speaking to Iran sometimes, but he's speaking to America anyway. But the point is, Benny Boy is just covering. He's trying to hoodwink more people. That's all it is. He's just making himself and the Israeli state out to look like they're doing something justified. Whereas internationally, across the board, even America knows it. They won't announce it at a state level. Though America knows that, oh, you're messing up the diplomatic decorum that literally everyone operates by. We can have bitter enemies, but when we need to speak to them, there needs to be an outlet. You're bombing that outlet. Like, That there's no justification for that. They're not Palestinian resistance fighters in Qatar. They're not holed up in some command center. This is a political bureau that Israel knew about. They've got the address, they got the names of the people. So just dropping a strike is completely diplomatically unprecedented, which is why the Qataris called it treachery. Because it's like you agreed to sit down, both of you have put your arms to the side, your firearms to the side, and then Israel just sort of got out a special one and then headshotted the guy. It's like, what? I thought we had an agreement, right? If you watch John
Yeah.
Wick, it's like killing someone on the continental grounds. Like, that's off limits. There's a rule. We have a. You're just breaking the. Anyway, Israel has shown obviously that they don't care about the rule. But my point was, there is no narrative where Qatar can say, "Okay, fine, we'll kick out the Palestinian officials." There's no narrative there. The officials are only there because Israel wanted them to be there. That's part of what they wanted, the Israelis. So this is
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
framing to confuse more American citizens because they're losing America, right? They're losing you guys. Loads
Oh
of people,
yeah.
even on the right wing, they're saying, what is this? The United States of Israel? What's going on? I don't have healthcare. If my wife wants to give birth, it's 10K for a hospital and a trip in an ambulance, but Bezalel Smotrich and his buddies have free everything and we're paying for it. What the flip is
10,
going on?
10K if you're at a community hospital, maybe. Try more like
Oh God.
40K.
Oh
Yeah.
mate, my condolences. My
Yeah.
condolences. But yeah, so
I had a
it's
health
an interesting
incident
situation.
last year, and I was in the hospital for 3 days. I had a very bad reaction to the vaccine from
Oh,
Pfizer, and I was like really bad. And if it wasn't for my health insurance, my bill would have been over $150,000, and I didn't have surgery or nothing. I was just in the hospital being monitored.
this is what this
It's
is big healthcare again, isn't it? This is another one of
yeah.
those late stage capitalist money makers for the rich, squeezing the poor. Well,
I mean, when they
just
charge you $50 for a Tylenol, that you know there's something wrong.
$15 for a drink or something. I should probably stop
Yeah.
buying these. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and I would say I don't know if you drink energy drinks, but don't drink those. Those are horrible.
I know.
They
I know.
actually led me to a disease called Barrett's esophagus because I used to drink Monsters every day and I'd get really bad heartburn from them. And the
Oh,
heartburn actually destroys the lining of your esophagus, and so the cells mutate to try and make themselves tougher, and that turns into cancer. Fortunately, I don't have cancer. But I'm like right there. Like I cannot have heartburn at all. I'm on heartburn medication, like a really strong heartburn medication, and I can't have heartburn because it could very quickly turn into cancer. And I'll have this condition for the rest of my life now. And it was all from drinking energy drinks for 2 years. That's all it took. 2 years.
Oh wow. I'll keep that in
So
mind.
don't drink energy drinks,
Need to fix
especially if
up,
they cause you
guys.
heartburn.
Guys, you
But
heard it
yeah,
here
so
first. Yeah.
yeah. They actually, because everybody talks on the cardiotachia that it does to your heart, but nobody knows about the Barrett's esophagus that it causes. So
Sure.
nobody talks about that. So that's another reason not to drink them. So I don't drink them anymore. But yeah, I think, listen, what's happened with Israel and Qatar is Israel's now put Qatar's royal family in a rock and a hard place. Like, you're telling them, well, you have to kick out the Palestinian resistance political leadership, who, like you said, they're not in some command center or a bunker. They have no military value whatsoever. You take them out and it doesn't change anything on the ground. So they're not a high value asset in a military terms. All it is it's a provocation against a country that has supported you in tacitly, not openly, but tacitly has been supporting you for years. And now you just bit their hand, and you're telling the leadership there that you either have to accept us smacking your people in the face and do nothing about it, and then you have to violate not only Islamic decorum but also Arab decorum of kicking out somebody that you've given safe haven to, which is a huge no-no in the Arab honor system, right? So in Arab culture, once somebody, even this even goes predates to Islam, when somebody from another tribe would give somebody safe haven in their tribe, they became off limits to anybody in that tribe touching, right? And
Yep.
and basically, if anybody touched them, the whole tribe would go to war with your tribe for
Mhm.
doing that, even though they're
Yeah.
not from that tribe. But one person does it, and so that obviously is carried on after Islam came to Arabia. And so you're telling these Arab leaders, these Arab Muslim leaders, that they have to violate both of those honor systems in both their religion and their culture, and they have to not retaliate after they just had their sovereignty violated in destruction. And a Qatari was killed in this too. A lot of people have been talking about that. There was a Qatari citizen security
Officer.
officer who
Yeah.
was killed in the strike. And so I think that it's very interesting because could Qatar go to war with Israel? Yes, if they were in coordination with Iran and Turkey, I think, because Qatar does have very advanced air force. They don't have F-35s though, and that's the problem. Even though they have a very advanced versions of the F-15, they have Typhoons, they have other aircraft that they have purchased, and a lot of them. They could do strikes on
I
Israel, but
mean,
it would be very difficult for them to do it by
Abdullah,
themselves, and they would probably lose.
I would politely disagree. Not completely, and not disrespectfully, but based on my understanding, uh, the Qataris could not go to war with Israel in any capacity that's offensive. I'll tell you the most harsh action that Qatar could do, right? And this is not even, I'm not even saying this is likely. I'm saying if they chose the harshest option, this is one of them, right? It could get a bit harsher, but this is most non tinfoil hat. The Qataris, the Kuwaitis, the Saudis, the Emiratis, meaning UAE, meaning Dubai, uh, Jordan, Egypt, Turkey, Lebanon, right? Iraq, all these countries, or some of these countries who are particularly upset at the administration level, they could basically say, we are not cooperating with the Israel American axis, right? The Palestinian resistance and their allies, or Iran and their allies, if they square off against Israel and Axis Tel Aviv, right? I'm calling it Axis because the whole system pivots on Tel Aviv or Jerusalem now. Pick your, I don't know, occupied settlement. The whole system pivots on Tel Aviv. Whatever Tel Aviv says, whatever Netanyahu says, America sort of obliges, right? America says don't do this, they do it anyway. America adjusts. They say, okay, they had to do it. Reasons. Biden especially did that very vocally. So if it comes to a situation where Iran and Houthi Yemen and the Lebanese paramilitary in the south, and the Palestinian resistance forces in Gaza and the West Bank, if there's any sort of coordination or combined attack, the most you will see Saudi Arabia and or Qatar and these Gulf monarchies, the most you will see is they will say, absolutely not. You can't use our bases. You can't use our land. You can't use our airspace. Non-cooperation with America. And what that will do is they'll further encourage America not to come to Israel's aid. And America, by and large, even at the administration level, this is a hot take. Lots of people don't sort of agree with this. But America doesn't want conflict with Iran, right? America doesn't even want to support Israel particularly anymore. It's just that APAC has a lot of influence on the administration, and that they're slipping,
Yeah.
they're losing that, which is why, by the way, the American citizenry, by and large, shouldn't be completely doom and gloom. There is hope that because the citizenry are able to mobilize and push back against the lobbies that America has, there is hope actually that you'll be able to, rip democracy back from the hands of the small few that control it. But going back to the point, Qatar, how's Qatar gonna, just to touch on what you said, Qatar can't attack Israel Abdullah. It doesn't matter if they have F-35s or F-40s in the future. It doesn't matter. It's all American technology. You think the American military will allow American technology to be deployed against Israel? Absolutely not. There's clear documentation. There's clear policy. It's not even like tinfoil hat CIA stuff. This is openly public that America has for decades, to this day even, ensured that Israel is provided with a strategic advantage. If there's two generations of technology, America gives the best toys to Israel, and then the hand-me-downs to your Egypt, your Saudi Arabia, your Qatar. And even for those hand-me-downs, they charge a premium, and the Gulf monarchies pay that premium. It's insane, but that's the reality. Okay, I'm just speaking about the reality on the ground. So there is no conflict where American weaponry can be used against Israel. There really isn't. The only thing Qatar can do is say, mate, we've had it. We've absolutely had it. Al Udeid airbase, you got 2 years to get out. And America might be like, okay, fine. Like, there's not much that America can do other than actually sort of force themselves onto Qatar to stay on Qatari soil, on Saudi soil. And they're not going to want to do that because there's no real benefit. America's on its way out of the Middle East. I explained this in my geopolitical analysis pieces. This will just hasten their exit from the Middle East. But you know what? That's actually enough. If Qatar, Saudi Arabia, they said no airspace use for America, we've had it with Israel. That's gonna be enough. You know what Iran would do? Iran would mobilize all its aligned factions, maybe even Turkey, which is a NATO member. We're already discussing a possibility where crazy things happen. So in this crazy situation, Egypt and Turkey, they might actually say, okay, you know what? Now's the time to sort of reset the geopolitical dynamics in the Middle East. It will probably be Turkey, Iran, Houthi, Yemen, Egypt. They would all do certain things, especially Turkey, because even though it's NATO, it's got its own military industrial complex that doesn't rely heavily on American technology in the same way as Saudi and Qatar do. Saudi and Qatar, they just have to stay quiet, like sit down and don't be on the other side. Just don't support Israel. That's all that would be asked of them.
Yeah.
And you know what? That would actually be enough. Israel does not have the longevity, the population, the strategic depth, the citizen resilience. The culture in Israel is not the same as the culture in Iran. These dual citizens, anything starts blowing up, they'll fly back to Eastern Europe, fly back to Florida or wherever. They would not last. The person, just to summarize, just to finalize, sorry, the person that did a hit piece on me, he said something. He said, oh, look at Mahfouz. He thinks that Iran won the 12-day war. And he laughed, and all his commenters are like, whoa, what an idiot. Well, I gave a geopolitical, thought-out assessment from the perspective of an analyst. And he sort of came at it with America and America's allies are number one, they can't lose perspective. I don't know which one you believe more, but I gave my reasoning. My reasoning was Israel initiated a conflict. They have war goals. Their open war goal was to eliminate Iran's nuclear capabilities, and their covert war goals, which later were revealed, or the theory is strengthened that these were their hidden war goals. The hidden war goals were to drag America into the fight and then deploy America, basically sick the American dog onto Iran, because they can't fight Iran themselves. They'll just chuck you guys at Iran and be like, there you go, we've got these guys doing our bidding. They failed to bring America into the war in any meaningful way. Why? Because Trump used his B-2 bombers, used the GBU-57 bunker busters, as it were. And then afterwards, he said to Netanyahu, Benny boy, I have done all that I'm going to do for you. No more. Don't ask me to get involved. My people are not interested. Okay, it's fake news that we want to be in a war with Iran. He just left it, right? So Israel can't rely on America. They weren't able to drag America in. America did a one and done and said, we can't help you anymore. Israel failed to degrade Iran's nuclear capability in any reasonable, analytically proven, meaningful way, because Iran reports have shown that Iran was told, potentially by America, that they're going to strike the nuclear facility. So they moved their enriched uranium, right? There's reports across the internet about this. They moved their enriched uranium, and Netanyahu, if you don't believe me, believe the Israelis then, at least, right? Netanyahu said in an interview with I24 News last month, he said the Iranians probably still have enough enriched uranium to make 8 to 10 bombs. So you haven't got their nukes destroyed. You haven't got America into the fight. You haven't collapsed the Iranian regime. This was the ultimate covert but ultimate goal. Collapse the Iranian regime, the Iranian government, collapse it so that Israel has no opposition in the Middle East. They failed all that. And I said, therefore, because their war goals were not achieved, and because Iran was struck, they didn't do the attacking, they were struck, and it's strategically beneficial for Iran to disengage. They don't want a fight, actually, Iran. They need time so that they can work with China to develop their economy and pivot completely to the global south. And therefore, the longer they can stay without fighting, the more beneficial it is for Iran, because the global south is rising, and therefore sanctions would mean less for the Iranian economy, detrimentally speaking. It would be less detrimental. These choking sanctions that America has placed on them, the longer things are drawn out, the better Iran's position. So they don't want a fight. So the one side that had initiated, they failed all their war goals, and after 12 days, they came to the table, they agreed. Or some reports say that they themselves, the Israelis, asked for the ceasefire. And Iran wanted the peace, and they got the peace after 12 days. So who won? It's called an effective victory in terms of military analysis. It's called an effective victory for Iran. It's not a total victory, because a total victory would be the collapse of the Israeli state if you are on Iran's side. But it's an effective win. So no one addressed that. They just sort of laugh at my assessment. But that's the honest truth. So yeah.
The other thing that people don't realize and that haven't been talked about enough either is that Iran completely exposed the Iron Dome, that it is not invincible. That Tel Aviv can be put on notice, that it can look like Gaza in a matter of minutes. And so you're not invincible. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem to have taught Netanyahu a lesson. It hasn't slowed them down. It slowed them down from the war with Iran rhetoric, because they don't want that. So what they did is now they're just, in the last 72 hours, they've bombed 5 countries. So
no, it has taught them a lesson, though. It has, because they initiated the attack. Iran responded. After 12 days, Israel's looking at its stockpile. They're like, yo, we're running out of patriots. Can someone please send more? And Iran, on the other side, they were like, are you already tired? We haven't even brought out the good stuff. Last 2 days, now, I'm not exaggerating. In the last 2 days of the conflict, they started using modern missiles. And the Iranian administration or regime announced that they had been using the Soviet era updated missiles all this time. So Israel realized that, oh no, I've got into something, I can't finish it. And they agreed to the ceasefire. And Benjamin Netanyahu did learn his lesson, Abdullah. That's why Israel's attacking everyone except Iran, right? So the language the Israelis understand, by Israelis I mean the administration, I'm not talking about the citizens, the language the Israeli state, the language, admittedly, America understands, is not English, is not Hebrew, is not Farsi, is not Arabic. The language they understand is strength. Those who have strength, we back away. That's how bullies operate. For better or worse, that's just the reality. Bullies, you punch. If they punch back, they're like, oh, I need to find a new victim because I've got a bust lip now. I was expecting something. Can I just take my backup dancers and let's just find some women and children that we can strike instead? And that's what Israel does, right? Bakeries, hospitals, say no more, right? Unarmed civilian aid ships, no problem. Any sort of military confrontation, you know what? I think we can accept a ceasefire here, and we can leave it at that.
Peace, bro. We're the peacemakers.
They did the same in South Lebanon, by the way, right? They went in they were attacking the Lebanese paramilitary H group. I don't say the names because it's become a habit. It's fine. The H group in Lebanon that they were attacking with Israeli airstrikes, at a certain point in the last year, look it up, Israel decided to invade militarily on the ground into Lebanon, right? They got backhanded so hard Within a month, they're like, okay, never mind. Let me just back up again, and they went back to Israel, or they went back to
Yeah.
the residual sort of occupied South Lebanon positions they held before they started the invasion in less than a month, and they haven't invaded since. In Gaza, the final example I'll give, for those who contemplate, we're told this is one of the most sophisticated militaries on earth, one of the most well-funded, well-oiled machines, backed, funded, armed by the United States, the dominant military power on earth, the global hegemon, right? Who are they struggling against? You're fighting guys with no helmets, no body armor, no army, no navy, with Soviet era small arms. What's taking so long? Like, I'm not even pro-Israeli, obviously, but what's taking so long? Why is your operation not finished? Why are Palestinian resistance forces still running around? You can't say it's because we don't want to hurt the civilians, because 65,000 to 100,000 by some reports civilians are dead. So what's the issue? The issue is the Israeli army are very capable, Abdullah, at attacking innocent men, women, and children, and raising hospitals, residential blocks. When you actually fight back, we don't do fight back. We don't do fight back. That's why they want to track America at Iran, right? Watch out, watch this space. If round 2 starts, best believe Benjamin Netanyahu is going to get slapped by Iran. First slap, he's going to come to America and be like, Big Daddy, look, he slapped me, come help me, come
Yeah.
help. And America, I don't think is going to buy it. You guys are just going to say, nah, we ain't interested in a war for Israel's behalf. Hell no. Even Trump is very pragmatic man. You might love him, you might hate him, but he's pragmatic, he's practical. He thinks, okay, I can't deal with China. That's why tariff pause on China. Let me try and deal with Venezuela, because actually China has investments in Venezuela. Let me see if I can, push the American sphere of influence that way a bit. And he's not going to support Israel. He's actually even less keen to support Israel, but the support he gives is because of his APAC handlers. So I don't think Trump's going to take you guys into a war with Israel. Bruv, he's taking you into a war with Chicago and New York. Bruv, that's
Yeah.
his mission. Deploy the
That's what
National
he
Guard
wants.
to
He
visit
doesn't care.
Chicago.
He doesn't care about the rest of the world. He wants to be king of America. Right?
Yeah.
He doesn't care about the Middle East. He doesn't. Yeah, I mean that's just, he's said that so many times. He really doesn't care about Israel. He feigns like he does, but he really doesn't. I think one thing that is interesting, just a final point on the Israel Gaza thing, or in the Israeli army, many special forces operators from the United States who have gone over to help train and even cooperate with Israel have come back and said this is the most untrained, amateurish army we have
Really?
ever seen. First of all,
Yeah, don't
2/3
say.
of their ground forces are reservists. So these are people that are, doctors, lawyers,
Yeah.
teachers, nurses. Like these people are not professional soldiers, so they have no idea. They get very minimal training. They get like 6 weeks of training and like, here, go fight in Gaza, right? And that's why you see all of the atrocities that they're doing, because this is not a professional army. This is a reservist army, and this is what happens. It's like in the United States, we have the National Guard, which is our reservists, and then we have the regular army, and then we have the special forces, and so you have 3 tiers. You would never send a National Guard to do a special forces operation, even an urban combat operation. You wouldn't do it because these dudes are weekend warriors. They show up 2 days out of the week, or a couple of days out of the month, and they get very minimal training, and they're just very amateurish.
But that's
And
what
that's
Israel's
exactly what
got.
2/3 of
That's all you
Israel's
have.
got. Yeah, because they don't
Yeah,
have the
that's all you have.
manpower.
Also,
Like
that's
they
why
said,
the
they're talking about
Israeli
they're sending
soldiers.
300,000 into Gaza. Well, 290,000 of those dudes are,
Like button
weekend
pushers.
warriors. They don't know
Yeah,
what they're
yeah,
doing.
like computer technicians or software engineers
Yeah.
who put on a helmet. Yeah, that's also why you get PTSD. A phrase that really sticks with me. You don't get PTSD from doing the right thing. People don't get PTSD if they're fighting for something they believe in and they're not committing atrocities. There's, in Islam, but really it's universal. But as a Muslim, we say there is a fitra, there is a built-in human disposition, right? A human nature. If I see a woman being beat up on the street, by nature, as a man, I'm going to be protective. Like, oh, what's going on there, right? That's fitra. Everyone has that. So when these Israeli soldiers, they march into Gaza, they're told, do this, do this, do this, 3 unspeakable acts. they go home, they're screaming, they're, in interviews they're saying, I wet the bed now, I can't get over what we did, I can't believe we did this, that. Well, you don't get PTSD like that. You don't have an experience like that if you're fighting for something that you believe is right. So even the Israeli soldiers know in some ways that, oh, this is not right. Why am I aiming at children? Why are British doctors coming back to Great Britain here in the United Kingdom, sitting down at a panel and teary-eyed, they're saying, I'm a British surgeon. Look this up, right? British surgeon reveals what happens in Gaza. He says, I'm a British surgeon, and I have seen many, not one, not two, many examples of children coming in with headshot and neck wounds from bullets. You're not that good, right? The Israeli soldiers are not that good that accidentally they're landing headshots on kids. You're aiming for them. That if that's military doctrine, of course you're gonna get PTSD. Why would you be aiming at kids? Now, if you don't get
Yeah.
PTSD, that's arguably even a bigger problem. Because then why are you not getting PTSD from war crimes? Do you get what I'm saying? It's
Yeah,
like,
you're a
oh,
sociopath.
I actually feel bad. Loads of people will be like, Mahfouz, you've completely lost the plot. But I say, I actually feel bad for the Israelis a lot of the time because their whole state, the way it's built, they are raised, indoctrinated. They have to be. There was a report recently of a poster in a hospital in Israel that shows a baby in its mother's womb with an Israeli helmet on, is the IDF helmet on. From before birth, they're put into this mindset of we're a military nation that needs to defend itself from enemies all around. I feel bad for them. They're raised with that hate in their heart. So when you're older, of course you're gonna act like ridiculous, and then you're gonna go on holiday to various countries, and people are just gonna smack the shit out of you because, excuse me, they're gonna smack the living daylights out of you because they're gonna think, "Oh, you can't act like that here. This is not Israel. I don't know what you thought, where you thought you're going. This is
Yeah.
Ibiza, right? Okay, we don't
Yeah.
act like that here. We don't do that. Or this is Thailand, right? This is Bangkok. So I feel bad for them. It's not their fault. Their government nurtured them to be that way because they need the soldiers. And there's so few Israelis. There's only 10 million Israelis. And a slice of that are Palestinian Israelis, meaning Palestinians that somehow managed to stay on the land and not get kicked out during 1947, 1948, and 1967. So they don't count either. So Israel doesn't have a large manpower pool, which is why the whole culture is militaristic and sort of confrontational from the start. I feel bad for them. They just need
And
to,
here's the biggest
sit
problem
around the
that
fire and sing kumbaya.
the biggest problem that nobody's even talked about is, like, if you take Israel as an analogy of a cannibalistic tribe in the Amazon, right? And so this tribe goes and attacks all the tribes surrounding it, and it eats all the other tribes. Well, what's left when all the other tribes are gone and it's just that one cannibal tribe? They cannibalize themselves, right? And so that's what's on the table for Israel. They have normalized the sexual assaults on men, women, and children. They've normalized the grotesque mutilation of human beings, women, children, murder, all of these things. They've normalized that. They've gone and done it. And then what happens if the Palestinians aren't there anymore? These people, they actually, it becomes a bloodlust, right? They get addicted to this. And this is actually common with soldiers even in the United States, where they get addicted to warfare. And this is why their deployments, a lot of advocates were saying you can't send a soldier to his fourth, fifth, or sixth deployment, because at some point he's not going to be a soldier anymore, but he's going to be in our community, and this dude's unalive 250 people. That becomes a
Wow.
problem, right? You can't continue to put somebody in that situation, and that's what they're doing. Especially like you said, they don't have the manpower, so they're sending these guys back and back and back and back again to do the same thing. Well, if all the Palestinians are gone, they're going to turn to do it to somebody else, and it's going to be an Israeli. This is why the Israeli society has one of the highest child molestation rates, rape rates, and murder rates are on the rise. because these guys are coming back from doing this, and now it's just a snap. I just seen a video of an IDF soldier that was in Italy on vacation, and a couple of UNICEF workers were out there raising money for food for Gaza, and the dude started screaming, "I will kill you. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill." Imagine if this dude had a firearm. Well, in Israel, they all have firearms. So it's going to turn, and the same thing has happened here in the United States, particularly within the minority areas, in the African American areas, where for the past 40 years we've had gangster rap music, which was produced and pushed out by Jewish owned record labels. Just saying, to where it is now, it is not only is it cool to unalive your fellow black person, but it makes you a man if you do. You're not a man until you've capped somebody, right? And it's always this black on black violence. And so when you put that continuously into somebody's brain, especially young, if you watch some of the social media stuff of young Israelis, some of the Twitch streamers and stuff, they'll randomly bring on these Israelis, and these are young kids. And they're talking about
shouting and swearing,
kill babies in Palestine. This is a 12-year-old saying this, right?
Yeah, so they're not evil. They've been raised that way.
It's falling apart, and it's going to cannibalize itself at some point. It cannot continue to exist in this manner. It just can't. It'll destroy itself. It'll either destroy itself, or the world will realize that this is such a major cancer to world peace and prosperity that we have to get rid of it. One of the two is going to have to happen at some point. How long that's going to take, I don't know, but hopefully it does. I did want to pivot because in the United States, there's this narrative that London has fallen. We talked about this before with the growth and empowerment of Muslims in the UK. You have several mayors now who are Muslim, including the mayor of London. You have the, I guess it's the Home Secretary is a Muslim woman, which really, really just irritates conservative American men. How dare England have a woman and a Muslim? Like, this is double whammy,
double kill,
right? Like, oh God, this just irritates me. Women should be in the kitchen, right? So I just kind of a Londoner, a Muslim yourself, and I believe your parents are from Bangladesh. Did I get that right originally? But you were born in London. So you're part of the Muslim community. You're part of the South Asian community. You're part of the English community. So you're there. Why is it that South Asians in particularly are just so smart, and they just seem to be so successful? That us white conservative people can't figure out, and it just makes us so angry.
That's very charged. That's a very pointed question. So I think, okay, look, first off,
by the way, before we go into that, because I was telling my medical story, every single one of my doctors was South Asian. Just saying, every single one. They're still in our jobs here.
Sure.
I mean, even despite the fact that we have a 30% shortage in doctors, and we need more South Asians to come over here to be our doctors, because apparently white people don't want to do it. But yeah, all my doctors were South Asian.
I want to start off by saying, first of all, London has not fallen to the Muslims. Now, you are speaking to a Muslim, and he is in London, so I might be not the most convincing individual, but hear me out. The United Kingdom currently has a labor shortage. We don't have enough people to fill jobs in healthcare, in hospitality, i.e. like hotels and maids, construction, which is the complete opposite, right? You need really strong, resilient men usually. We don't have enough people, right? Why? There are several reasons. Two of the biggest ones is because of Brexit, less people are being allowed in from the European Union, the mainland, as it were. That's left a shortage of number of people coming in yearly to fill those roles. Second reason, the birth rate in the country For females in the United Kingdom, as of 2023, the birth rate is 1.54. Now, two people make a child. So if a woman has a birth rate of two, if the average woman has two children in her life, that will keep the population of a country just stable, because she has to obviously have two kids because her husband can't have a child, obviously, right?
Right.
She has to give birth to two, right? That's called the replacement level. Two is the replacement level. Technically, it's 2.1 to account for deaths of kids, like mortality, accidents, all kinds, war. So, for a country to have a stable population, you need two kids per woman. And in the UK, since the last couple of years, at least, probably beyond, it's been far below two. So you need immigrants to keep your country running. So the patriots out there, listening to your video, for even from the UK, the people who can't care about the UK, you want your country not to collapse, right? In terms of its economy, in terms of collapsing from a workforce shortage, you need immigrants. Get them from somewhere. It doesn't have to be Bangladesh, right? You can get them from somewhere else, but you need immigrants. So being angry at immigrants for coming over is a bit misplaced. Okay, that's the first thing I want to say. Second thing is, and I'll finish on the third thing. The second thing I want to say is, I completely understand. This is rare, by the way. I think I'm one of the few people who would do this. I completely understand, though, the native Brits or the native English being upset that their country's getting more brown. Now, that's not something that all white people in Britain will have as a sentiment. Lots of people will be like, "What's wrong? What's wrong if the country's getting more brown?" Okay, you're not the problem though. The group that's really upset, the problem, but let's say the upset group are the group that's saying, "I'm upset that the country's getting more brown." I hear you. I hear you. But then find a solution. Like, are you gonna somehow mandate that your women folk have more kids? Because you need to find a way to stabilize your population. I don't know what you want. Or would you rather the country bursts into flames or dies slowly? Like anything
I mean,
except
there is
having more
one
brown people.
solution.
What?
There's one solution. England could adopt half of Elon Musk's kids because he keeps popping them out like crazy.
Sure. So, Elon Musk is a perfect example. His ex Twitter posts say the Western world is collapsing because of population collapse. And then some of his other posts say immigration is ridiculous, it's completely unacceptable. Countries are losing their culture. Pick us, pick one. You can't have
Yeah,
both. you
one or the other.
you can't have a red car and a white car and at the same time have just one car. It does. So that's the second thing I want to say, which is I understand that people are unhappy. You can be
Apparently,
unhappy.
your phone was too.
You're not, I actually get it, because if more foreign people come and they bring with them a foreign belief system or a foreign culture, naturally the natives will feel threatened. I understand that. But after understanding that, I'm inviting the people who think that way to present or consider solutions to the population and economy problem of your, let's call it your country. Let's not even call it my country, even though I was born here and I'm a British citizen. Let's call it your country because you're white. What do you suggest? What do you suggest, right? Consider it. Okay, now this is the third thing I want to move on to before I hand it back to you. The third thing is certain individuals, and I'm speaking really to the white patriots in Britain right now, certain individuals want you guys, right, to be hoodwinked and to weaponize you against other fellow citizens or other fellow inhabitants of the United Kingdom. They said, we need a punching bag because our economy is in the dumpster. It's a dumpster fire. It's a raging dumpster fire. Who can we blame? Brown people. It's always worked. So let's just go again, right? And I encourage you guys not to fall for it again. Now, being an analyst, I can say politically, we have Nigel Farage, the Reform UK head. Think of him as our Donald Trump. He is a populist who plays on this sentiment. He says, look, these guys are stealing your jobs. These guys are having so many children and then claiming welfare. By the way, we can't steal jobs and claim job seekers allowance at the same time. But sure, okay, fine. We're stealing your jobs and also seeking job seekers allowance at the same time. But beyond that, he says over 50% of London is no longer white. Well, listen, Farage. Or listen, I say to the supporters of Farage, Nigel Farage and wealthy individuals in the UK are getting richer, and the browns and the blacks and the whites and every other color or every other combination, we're all getting poorer. So you're being directed to fight your fellow man who's going through the same problems that you're going through, while the rich are sitting at the top laughing. So are you that foolish? I would encourage people to think beyond just the divisive rhetoric and think, oh, hang on, yeah, actually, that sounds right. Abdul down the road also lost his job last week. Like me, like I'm struggling, he's struggling.
Yeah.
Ramanjit can't pay for groceries like he used to. I also can't pay for groceries. Why am I hating on Ramanjit and Abdul? The problem are the fat cats who are taking a bigger slice of the wealth of the country every year, while we have our standard of living drop every year. Salaries are not increasing at the rate inflation and cost of living is increasing. So we're all suffering, and certain groups like Reform UK play on that suffering by saying, look, that's your enemy. The people coming over on dinghies, that's your enemy. Bruv, you got bigger problems than the random guys coming across the English channel on dinghies. They're going to come across the English channel on dinghies, and then they're going to get paid like £8 an hour to stock your groceries. They're not stealing your jobs. That is a problem, fine. That is a problem. Illegal immigration is a problem, fine. But it's not your main problem. The prosperity of your country, the wealth that should be in your pockets, the wealth that should be taking care of your people, is being squandered by a corrupt or ineffective government, and the people at the top are living their best life. We just had a government
Yeah.
official that sacked herself or something because she evaded taxes on a second home using some legislative wushu or whatever, right? That's your problem. The problem is not the guy down the street. And normally I'm impartial, and I continue to be, but I'm being analytical here, saying that the right wing in the UK are weaponizing the grievances of the electorate that they want to grab the votes of to get into power, but they don't actually care about those people. Nigel Farage is not going to take care of you if he gets into power. He's going to take care of his wealthy supporters, even though he's a populist. Similar to Donald Trump in many ways, he takes care to appeal to the people, but when he's in power, he takes care of his rich buddies. Right? What happened? Why are you not richer now that Trump's in power? He's been in power. Where's all the money that you're gonna put in that giant sack that you bought to put the dollar bills in? Where's the money? Right? Same situation here in the UK. And the Browns are not taking over. The Muslims are not taking over. Culturally, just to go back to your question, culturally, our parents or our parents, there's a culture of, you need to work really hard, you need to be academically very competent, you need to go to university, or I'm going to disown you. There's only three jobs: engineer, doctor, or failure. In our culture, that's the three jobs you can
Yeah.
have. Very similar to Chinese culture, very similar to Indian culture, very similar to some African country cultures, Nigerian, Ethiopian, Kenyan. Your parents will be like, you must get into a good university. You have to get into a good university. Now, if the
Yeah.
natives don't have that kind of culture, don't have that kind of upbringing, well, it doesn't mean they're more stupid. It just means their parents aren't pushing them to achieve those goals. They're very likely to be capable of those. Their parents just need to push harder if that's the kind of outcome they want. And if they don't, well, then Ramanjit's going to be your surgeon when you need an eye doctor, or Abdullah is going to be your knee doctor, and you're probably going to be okay if it's the difference between, if it's the choice between Abdullah or just a bad knee that can't be fixed, right? Do you want longer? Do you want double NHS waiting times as long as there's no brown people in the NHS? I don't think so. So don't be
Yeah.
hoodwinked. That's what I'm saying. Don't be tricked by the populist rhetoric. And actually, we have Jeremy Corbyn, who's starting a political party here in the UK for the far left. He's trying to sort of counterbalance Nigel Farage's Reform UK. So we'll see how that goes, because Corbyn is the exact opposite. He's very, he's the exact opposite pretty much of
Yeah.
Nigel Farage in every way.
I mean, it reminds me of, in American history, there was a small town called Rosewood. They actually made a movie about it, which is very, very difficult to watch because it was a really good movie, but it just hits you in the heart. And so this was post Civil War, just, within maybe 10, 15 years. And so a bunch of entrepreneurial freed African slaves had created this town called Rosewood. Now the Rosewood was predominantly black, but there were white residents as well. The big general store owner was a white dude, and there were other white people, and they were really like thriving. The farms were thriving, the businesses were thriving. I mean, they had nice homes. One even had a piano in his home, which was unheard of. Pianos were like, you're really making it if you have a piano in your house. And some of the poor white people in the community were like, yeah, look at these Negroes and how they're this and they're that, and they're stealing our wealth. This Negro has a piano, I don't even have a piano, and blah blah blah. And so this white woman who was having an affair on her husband with a Freemason white dude, got into it with her lover. Her lover beat her, and then he used his Freemason ring to hurry up and get out of town with the other Freemason in the town. And she comes out because now she's got to cover it up, because when her husband gets home, like, who beat you? You know what I mean? So she goes out in the middle of the street and she claims that she was raped by a black person in the town. And so that was the catalyst that the white dudes had, to get other white, like they spread this story around to other towns that were all white, and this enraged the white people that, a Negro could rape a white woman, we've got to get rid of him. So long story short, they end up slaughtering everybody in the town, men, women, children, everybody. But at the same time, the blacks fought back. Initially they didn't, because they were caught off guard, but they started fighting back. So a lot of the poor white people also died. The general store gets burned out. The whole city is just basically burnt to the ground. Not city, it was a town. The whole town gets burnt to the ground. And who profited off of that? The rich white barons who came in and bought all of the property now that it was vacated for pennies on the dollar, and then built a factory on it.
Oh man. Do you laugh or do you cry?
This is the problem when racism gets involved in people's economic problems. It's not other people's race that's the problem. You're the problem. Go to university, be successful, start an enterprise, start a business, right? Don't blame your neighbor because you're poor. Hustle more, work harder, be smarter.
But not everyone here is an American. You guys are really good at hustling. So maybe here,
we are, but we have the same problem here, where we do have trailer trash white people, right? And I came from a very poor background. So I understand the mentality is, I don't want to work hard to become a doctor, but I despise the fact that Sanjeet is a doctor. Okay, that makes no sense whatsoever.
You just see the result and you want to. You're not willing to put that effort in that. But I wouldn't even say
piano. You don't want the black person to have the piano. But you don't want to work for it. You just want to take
it. Abdullah, I don't think it's just a pull yourself up by the bootstraps situation. It is also a don't allow yourself to become a tool in the hand of someone more powerful and more manipulative, right?
Exactly.
You don't have to work hard. You don't have to go to university or send your kids to university by force. But if you allow yourself to become a weapon, because racism has been weaponized, if you fall for that, you're just contributing to the downfall essentially of your own country, the destabilization and the downfall. And the rich will be fine. If the whole world burned to a crisp, best believe the rich will have built rockets somewhere so that they can fly off to God knows where. That is safe.
Well, the film Don't Look Up. Mark Zuckerberg bought an island and built $100 million bunker in it. So yeah, I mean, they'll be fine.
What's he preparing for?
He'll be fine.
He'll be okay. He's preparing for a nuclear war. He's preparing to use advances in biology to live to 150. That was caught on a hot mic moment at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization or military parade by China. That kind of technology exists. So I'd say, yeah, don't be hoodwinked. That I think is a fair
Yeah.
non-partisan comment to make.
So I think it's an interesting thing, obviously, because the United States has deep cultural ties to England because of the colonies here. Obviously, we speak English, even though obviously there's accent, the American accent, the UK accent. Um, but even then, like within the United States, we have different accents. Within the UK, you have different accents. So there's a lot of cultural ties there. There's a lot to learn from each other, and I think that you know what a lot of people don't understand is in the United States, and I think even now with England, um, immigration and cultural exchange is a fantastic thing that should be celebrated, not demonized. Um, we don't have to always agree with somebody's religion. We don't have to agree with their uh, cultural practices. That I'm not a Hindu. I'm not going to agree with Hindus. I'm not going to do what Hindus do, but I'm not going to walk down the street and attack a Hindu.
No.
The same thing, for a perfect example, was one of my doctors was a Hindu, and he did a fantastic job, and I'm very appreciative that he was there to do it. So um I think that there's a lot to learn. It's just right now, it's it's 50-50 which way it's going to go in Europe, in especially the United States right now. And I think that if the United States were to kick off even not a full blown civil war, but some type of civil unrest where people are dying from it, that this could play very bad for the right wing extremists in Europe and in England in particular, to have their way to justify some type of violence. And hopefully that doesn't happen. But it remains to be seen what type of backlash from the Charlie Kirk thing that happened yesterday is going to happen. Um, and again, like you said, don't be hoodwinked, because the people who are going to benefit from that are not you or me. It's not the everyday average person.
That's
It's
right.
going to be foreign countries that want to see this happen.
Yeah, true.
It's going to be the super rich that would profit off of it, and the military industrial complex that would profit off of it. And greed is blinding, right? So sometimes, like the military industrial complex, and the super rich billionaires who want to like pull the puppet strings, and they want to play God, and like they're really in charge, and then all of a sudden the whole thing just blows up into a giant explosion of fire, like in Nepal, and next thing you know, you're being dragged out of your parliamentary home and thrown in the river in your underwear. So
You heard about that.
these types of things do happen. But man, great interview, brother. I appreciate you so much for being here. This has been Avi, we scheduled this for 35 to 45 minutes. We're at an hour and a half, just
This is
over
what
an hour.
happens when I speak. Sorry about that. My
Yeah,
condolences.
no, I loved it. It was great. I look forward to getting this thing posted, and appreciate you, brother. Just keep doing the work that you're doing. I think it's
Thank you.
fantastic. I've watched a ton of your live streams and your videos, and very, very poignant insights into what's going on around the world.
I'll try my best, Abdullah. Thank you, bro.
Absolutely. All right, guys. See you in the next video. Stay tuned. Follow for more. And end the recording.